Imagine waking up tomorrow to a headline that changes the global order forever. The Middle East is closed. No ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices skyrocketing by 400% in hours. And two global superpowers standing at the absolute edge of an uncontainable war. This is not a distant nightmare. It is the invisible chessboard that Washington and Tehran are playing on right now. For years, the world has watched America unleash crushing sanctions, targeted assassinations, and terrifying military deployments against Iran. The official narrative from the mainstream media is always the same. Washington just wants to prevent a nuclear weapon, or perhaps stop regional terror networks. But in the high-stakes world of geopolitics, the official narrative is almost always a carefully constructed illusion. What if everything you think you know about America's pressure on Iran is wrong? What if the real target isn't just Tehran's nuclear centrifuges, but something far vaster, reaching all the way to Beijing, Moscow, and the ultimate survival of the United States as the world's only superpower? To understand the true target, we have to look past the political theater and decode the specific strategy of Donald Trump. To the untrained eye, Trump's approach to Iran looks chaotic, aggressive, and highly unpredictable. He tears up international nuclear deals, orders high-profile drone strikes on top military generals, and implements what he calls maximum pressure. But beneath the surface, this is a calculated application of a classic geopolitical doctrine, the madman theory. The goal is to make the adversary believe that the American president is willing to take the absolute ultimate risk, making traditional calculations completely useless for Iran's leadership. When an adversary believes you are unpredictable, they lose the ability to counter your moves effectively. But what is the ultimate end game of this pressure? Is it simply to force Iran back to the negotiating table to sign a stricter piece of paper? Or is it something far more permanent? If you think a new treaty is enough to justify moving aircraft carriers and risking global economic collapse, you are vastly underestimating the stakes. The real goal goes much deeper into the earth, directly into the global energy supply. Look closely at the geography of the Middle East, and you will see a tiny choke point of water, known as the Strait of Hormuz. Through this narrow passage flows 1/5 of the entire world's petroleum supply every single day. If Iran loses control of its economy, it loses its ability to secure this region. But more importantly, if America can completely isolate and dominate Iran, America controls the literal off switch for the energy supply of its greatest global rivals. This is where the strategy shifts from a regional conflict to a brutal battle for global dominance. For decades, the true power of the United States has not just been its military, but the global dominance of the US dollar, backed entirely by the global oil trade. This is the Petro-Dollar system. Anyone who threatens the system, anyone who attempts to sell energy outside of the American financial network, becomes an existential threat to Washington. And Iran has been leading the rebellion against the dollar for years. But Iran is no longer standing alone. While Washington applies maximum pressure, a massive, silent alliance has formed behind the scenes. Tehran has quietly integrated itself into a powerful triad with Russia and China. This is the ultimate nightmare for American geostrategists. For China, Iran is not just an oil provider. It is a critical, irreplaceable hub for the Belt and Road Initiative, designed to bypass American naval power entirely. For Russia, Iran is a strategic partner in defying Western sanctions and creating a brand new financial system that the United States cannot touch, block, or monitor. When America attacks Iran's economy, it is not just fighting Tehran. It is fighting a proxy war against the unification of Eurasia. Every sanction placed on an Iranian oil refinery is a direct strike against China's future energy security. Every pressure point applied to Tehran is an attempt to break the supply lines feeding the alliance of America's fiercest competitors. This brings us to the chilling reality of what America's absolute goal truly is. The goal is not regime change in the traditional sense. Washington has learned from the catastrophic mistakes of Iraq and Libya that collapsing a state completely creates a power vacuum that destroys regional stability and invites even worse chaos. The goal is far more sophisticated. It is strategic paralysis. America wants an Iran that is too weak to challenge the Petro-Dollar, too isolated to protect its shipping lanes, and too economically drained to fund its proxy networks across the region, yet just stable enough to not completely implode into a failed state. It is a state of perpetual containment. Washington wants to lock Iran in a permanent cage, cutting off the vital energy arteries that China needs to fuel its rise as the next global superpower. But this strategy carries an immense, terrifying risk. When you push a powerful, historically deeply resilient nation completely into a corner, when you cut off every peaceful economic exit, you remove their incentive to play by the rules. If Iran believes its survival is at stake, the temptation to cross the ultimate red line and rapidly assemble a nuclear deterrent becomes almost irresistible. At that point, the chess game ends, and a completely uncontrollable chain reaction begins. The strategy of maximum pressure is a walk along the edge of a razor-sharp blade. One wrong calculation, one misunderstood warning sign, and the entire global structure collapses into a conflict that no one can contain. We are living through the most critical realignment of global power since the end of the Cold War. The decisions being made right now in Washington and Tehran will decide the future of the global economy, the survival of the US dollar, and whether the world remains under a single superpower or fractures into a brutal multipolar conflict. The invisible empire of global strategy is moving pieces on the board every single day, right before our eyes, hidden behind the loud noise of the daily news cycle. The question is no longer just what America wants. The question is whether the world is ready for what happens if this high-stakes strategy fails. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and truly understand the massive, hidden forces shaping our global future before they make mainstream headlines, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. The chessboard is shifting fast, and you do not want to be left watching in the dark. Turn on your notifications, because our next deep dive investigation is going to uncover a truth that is even more closely guarded than this one. Thank you for watching, stay vigilant, and we will see you in the next video.